Hello and welcome to another edition of Enta Asks. Joining us today is Mike de Boer, founder of LevellingUp. Mike believes that today's leaders are set up to fail because we've been put in leadership roles without being equipped with the skills we need to lead well. So he's created LevellingUp, where you and I can grow essential skills in community. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Mike, good to have you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of how LevellingUp started?
Sure. You okay if I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm a 20-plus year oil and gas engineer, project manager, executive leader. Have grown up in that career. Early in my my engineering career, I realized I much more enjoyed the people side of things, so I gravitated away from engineering and more into project management and people leadership, and grew as a leader. That growth kind of hit its first, running into a post moment when November 2016, I was laid off. First time it happened in my career. So, I'm in my early 40s at that point and inspired a great little midlife crisis. What am I doing here with my one and only life anyways? Because the plan had been to, advance within the company I was in and to be able to lead within that company. So I was, at that point, I was being mentored by a CEO friend, and he and I were trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And one day in frustration, I said to him, what do you CEOs know? What can you do that the rest of us mere mortals don't know or can't do? Like, what makes you so darn special? And he says, oh, Mike, I'll let you in on the big secret. The honest answer is nobody that got to CEO got there without a leg up from somebody, without someone to give them a hand. And it had me realize this other journey I'd been on. In my grade 12 year of high school, our school had a weightlifting gym, and I, as they call it, I got bit by the iron bug. I decided I wanted to give Arnold Schwarzenegger a run for his money. Well, after 3-4 years, Arnold and I agreed that I was no threat to his title. I was not getting huge. I was not winning any competitions. But as an engineer, I read all the books. I did everything right. So boring part of this story is 20 years of unsuccessful solo weightlifting. Gets interesting when at the age of 37, I decide I want to try out the sport of strongman. The guys who pull big trucks, flip big tires, and do that kind of crazy stuff. Didn't know how to do that. So I joined this group that trained strongmen. For the first time in my lifting career, I'm getting feedback from experts. I've got a community of peers. 2 years after joining this group, I win the title Alberta's Strongest Man.
Wow.
2 years later, I win Western Canada's Strongest Man. So the same Mike, who for 20 years went solo, didn't get anywhere on his own, different training paradigm in community, all of a sudden, all this potential was realized. Okay, drawing the story to a close. Back with my CEO friend, I'm realizing my entire workplace career, I had been going solo, doing metaphorical curls in front of a mirror, trying to become the better leader. And I realized that any achievement I wanted to achieve had to be with folks that could help me, folks that could give me a leg up, and with a community of folks just like me trying to get to that same place. So LevellingUp was born out of wanting to help folks like me growing through their corporate careers, trying to become the best leaders within their organizations that they could be, but to do that with a leg up from somebody, with help from an expert, and with a community of peers. So long answer to your very short question. LevellingUp is about, we've been set up to fail by a system that says sink or swim, when the reality is the people who succeed aren't in the sink or swim world. The people who succeed are getting expert help and are connected to peers that can help them.
That's great. Thanks for that story. It's a very entertaining story to know how it all formulated. So you are coming to us today, and you're going to talk about something called the misinformation effect. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, just start us off and tell us what that is.
So the misinformation effect actually comes out of the studies from the judicial system. Because apparently, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, but apparently the majority of the evidence presented in a court of law is actually eyewitness testimony. But studies have also shown that eyewitness testimony is the least reliable form of evidence presented in a court of law. In fact, in DNA exoneration cases, eyewitness testimony, faulty eyewitness testimony, is cited as the issue like 75% of the time. So what's going on here? Why is eyewitness testimony flawed? And it comes out of something called the misinformation effect, because the reality is our memories are incredibly mutable, incredibly changeable. The world as we think we perceive it is not actually the world, or our memory will actually often betray us. And so we've all watched shows with the, say, the police interviewer that's trying to maliciously change the interviewee's perception of a situation through some sort of nefarious means. That's not at all what the misinformation effect is. The misinformation effect says that the questioning or the experiences we have, say, following an eyewitness experience can actually change our memory of that eyewitness experience. In fact, one study showed that the difference in the question, did you see the broken taillight versus did you see a broken taillight, actually will change how the people will answer that question, regardless of whether they saw a or the broken taillight, regardless of the brokenness of the taillight. The broken taillight is answered yes more often. And so the misinformation effect also says that our brains, which are essentially lazy, they're trying to conserve energy, they try to map our experiences to something called schema, to our belief in what a situation should be like. Consider, for example, a library. If your belief is that a library has shelves of books, has tables for people to sit and be quiet, has a librarian, if you are asked about a library you visited a number of months ago and quizzed on exactly what was there, if your schema said it had tables, your memory is likely to say it has tables regardless of whether there were tables or not. So that is the misinformation effect.
That is fascinating. And
okay.
If you think about this, as we come together as a community to try and grow our leadership skills, and as you're working with people or mentoring people, how can we use this to connect with people better and try and be better leaders?
Fantastic question, Adam, because simply knowing a thing, simply knowing the misinformation effect we got to know what to do with that, right? So as leaders, if we're going to lead people, if we're going to lead our team, our family, our community, whoever we're leading, we need to start with where they're at. So we need to recognize that the world that those that we're leading, the world they perceive, is different than the world we perceive. The misinformation effect, their schema, tells them that an experience that you and I share, you're going to experience it differently than I. So if I'm going to lead you, I need to start by recognizing your experience of that situation is tainted, or maybe my experience is tainted by our experiences, by our schema, by our backgrounds. So if I'm going to lead you, I need to connect with you exactly where you're at. I need to step outside of my reality. I need to step into your reality. And that's actually something that we all know as empathy. Stepping into your reality acknowledging that you are experiencing something in an emotional or an intellectual way differently than I, says, okay, I'm going to have empathy for Adam. I'm going to step into his experience, and I'm going to accept the reality that he sees so that I can understand it and so that I can participate in that reality with him. And then as a leader, by having empathy with those we are that are following us, with those we're leading, we can bring them along on the journey to the place that we're wanting to bring them to. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. So then we're all experiencing kind of a crazy reality right now with this COVID situation, and some people are going back to work and some people are staying at home, some people are doing a blend of both. But before, when we were all kind of we were all in the workplace, well, we might have had different perspectives. It wasn't nearly, I think, as much of a gap as it is now. So with COVID and the misinformation effect, what are we seeing? Are we seeing an amplify of that effect, or are we seeing leaders come to the table? What does that look like?
Okay, that's a great question. For me, my experience of seeing others, having empathy for others going through COVID, is what I've seen highlighted is the different risk tolerances we each carry as a result of our misinformation, as a result of our schema, as a result of our cultural upbringing, our family of origin, our historical experiences. We see different risk tolerances around, let's say, masks. Some people, go as far as saying, well, that's government manipulation, don't steal my rights. Other people say, why would you infringe on my right to have healthy children by not wearing your mask? Like all these different risk profiles, re-entry of workplace. Some people are quite comfortable with it, others not. School re-entry. So all of this is highlighting the different inherent risk tolerances that we carry. And yeah, as a leader, my belief is what we need to do is we need to step into the reality of those we're leading, not deny it, not say, well, my risk tolerance says that, as long as all the desks are wiped down once a day in the workplace, that's going to cover everything. That's my level of risk tolerance accepts that. As a leader, my empathy needs to say, well, let me understand what has caused you to have a greater or less risk tolerance. Help me understand that so we can connect in that place, and I can either bring you to my reality of desks being cleaned once a day is enough, or we need to bring me to your reality. But in either place, we need to connect. I need to connect with empathy, not to dismiss your reality, because your reality is real to you. So I need to meet you there, understand it, connect with it, and then we can go from there together.
And that's really interesting. It's kind of this double-edged sword right now, because we're in a situation where people have these different risk tolerances and they're worried about COVID or not worried about COVID. And yet at the same time, we're not together in the workplace the way we were before. So we have to use these technologies to connect remotely. So there are some challenges with that. Have you seen some things done well or some things done not so well with the whole remote working scenario?
Yeah, remote work. Interestingly, I know I myself and many of others have long told our employers, oh, I can work remotely just as effectively as I can work from home. And now, of course, we get to do this grand experiment where we're all working from home. And in many cases, productivity has gone up in workplaces where distractions have gone down and individuals can lean more into the tasks they're assigned. I do know of other workplaces, and one workplace is actually Leveling Up with me and my team, where we've actually had some productivity challenges, where traveling together as a team was an issue. what we uncovered is that some of the folks on our staff work best in community. They don't work well. They're not wired to work alone on tasks. They need to have that interaction and check in with community. Well, when we learned that, what we decided to do is, we of course can't sit in a bullpen together yet. So what we decided to do is to create the open workspace, where we have 2 days a week. We have this Zoom meeting that starts at, I think it starts at 9 in the morning and runs till 3 or 4 in the afternoon, where the folks on the team log onto that and join this workspace, but they don't have a 6-hour, 7-hour meeting. Like that would just be crazy. It's a way to yell over the cubicle wall virtually, to just be present in the same room virtually, and to be able to check in, every 15-20 minutes. Hey, can I ask you a question, or can I bounce something off you, without having to schedule another meeting, without having to text. So it's just the virtual yelling over the cubicle wall. For us, and for the needs, by having empathy with our staff and understanding their needs, we were able to come up with a solution. So one of the things I've recommended to a few others is to, if you're having team unity or team alignment challenges, to try out like a virtual workspace type setting, and see if that isn't the fix to some of the needs.
Effectively,
that's a really great idea.
Bringing your realities closer together, right?
Yes. Yeah. Without actually having to be physically present, to still be physically present.
Excellent. Well, that's some awesome ideas and information there. And I really like that, tying the misinformation effect to leadership and what that means. And so I know empathy has been a big topic. And so we really appreciate you coming to the table and sharing that with us, Mike. So thank you so much for your time. Not a problem. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.